Okay, today I am at Wolverhampton Races with Sam Turner. Thanks very much for agreeing to talk to us
Cheers,
today, Sam. Right, so you're Robin Goodfellow.
Yeah.
You're a jockey's agent, you're a pundit, you're a TV presenter, you're a tipster, you're a journalist, and you're a punter. Which do you identify with most?
Well, as we'll probably talk about, the jockey's agent role, that lasted a season. I haven't quite got the sack, but Meg Nichols, who I looked after for 12 to 14 months, sort of passed her over to a full-time agent, someone who can do her justice really. So probably a tipster, writer tipster really is the one I'm most comfortable with.
Okay, now if I got my research right, which I should have because you gave it to me, you left school with A levels, but you became a board marker. Now, first of all, you must have been pretty overqualified to be a board marker, and secondly, it wasn't that shrewd a move given how long a board marker had left.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you didn't see my A-level results. I was probably underqualified. Economics wasn't my strong point. I thought I got a U, which I thought was for unlucky, but obviously it was unclassified. I was always all right at English, did quite well in the English, but yes, I sort of, as we'll probably touch on, got to know Andy Holding through cricket, and he said, well, once I left school, I'd got the summer I to myself really, why don't you come and have a little sort of part-time job, or just come and mark the board for Stanley Racing and Whit Marines, which was a very eclectic mix of customer, but it certainly gave me a good grounding as to what was required. You got to watch the racing. Andy was a good judge even back in the day, and we were just getting into the realms of pictures coming into the shops rather than just the Excel commentary. So yeah, it was good crack.
So I'm assuming that your interest in racing started before that. So what spurred your interest in racing? Well,
at high school, I mean, I was always a little bit. I mean, my only vice really. I mean, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink particularly, but I did like to punt, and I sort of started on fruit machines like a lot of teenagers do, and managed to wean myself off those at an early age, realising that there wasn't much future in those, thankfully. And there was a lad in the upper sixth, as it was back in the day, David Wernick, who was the son of Mickey Wernick, who was quite a renowned sort of bookmaker at Monmouth Green and local tracks. He was also a pretty decent poker player as well. And I popped down the local shop with him one lunchtime, trying to swing away and miss French, and ended up having 50p on a winner, and that was it. I was hooked then. Watching your horse come home in front, it was probably the worst thing that could have happened anyway, certainly for Daily Mail readers, because then I was absolutely engrossed in the whole sport.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that you were quite good at English. So when did your interest in writing start?
Yeah, I could write probably better than speak it. Yeah, from an early age really. I mean, I was always massive into sport. Cricket predominantly. That was my first passion from an early age really. Growing up with both the 1981 Ashes, all that sort of stuff really fired it. And I was always intrigued by the people who earned a living from writing about sport. I thought, well, that's a no-brainer, isn't it? Who wouldn't want to do that job? I wasn't good enough to play at a high level. Played, good club cricket, but I was never good enough to go and play county cricket or even minor county cricket. So being able to watch it and get paid for watching it was definitely the way forward really. So that's where the love of sports writing came from, and I enjoyed sort of creative writing really from the word go. So that was always my strength really. I wasn't a particularly brilliant academic. I was okay with maths. I could work out what an each way double came to, but that was about the extent of it really.
So when did you decide to try and actually combine the two for a living?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably when I was about 17, 18, I tried to get into one or two places. I did some work experience at the Express and Star and the sports desk there, and they had some quite legendary names at the time. The sports editor Brian Clifford, Peter White, David Instone, people who covered football in our region, the West Midlands region for a long time, covered the top teams. Really enjoyed it. There weren't any openings. I had to go and get some qualifications really. A lot of people used to have to go onto journalistic courses at Preston, those sort of places. That never really appealed to me. I'd had my fill of school really. By the time I got to 18, I wanted to be earning and I wanted to be, sort of living really. Whereas most people saw 3 years at university as exactly that, living and enjoying themselves. Maybe I was too much of a home bird, I don't know. But so instead I ended up working in the betting shop for a few months, and then got a job on the Express and Star, but selling advertising for 4 or 5 years. and did that, made my way up through those levels, and just got an appreciation of newspapers, how they work, deadlines and things like that. So it was still quite good, and I was still writing advertising copy, albeit it was boring stuff about somebody having a nice fire for sale, or selling various cars or whatever. But at least it was still working within the newspaper industry, so I could get an appreciation of how it worked. And I probably spent more time down on the sports desk watching Test cricket and the odd derby than I did actually watching, where I should be doing, trying to sell advertising for the paper. So I wasn't probably the greatest rep that they've ever had.
So you did actually cover football at one point. Telford.
Yeah.
Now, did your football career sort of begin and end there? And why did you ever consider football journalism as a career route?
Yeah, I mean, it was very much a positive. I mean, that was in the early 2000s when I was on the Shropshire Star. I had 2 seasons of doing Telford, which were great. I had a brilliant manager to work with, Jake King, at the time. The players were terrific with me. Certainly, they were great. They had a couple of really good seasons in the conference, given the budget that they were on, and it was great fun. Travelling all over the country, covering conference football with one eye on the racing. But my role on the Shropshire Star at the time was very much combined racing and football with plenty of cricket thrown in. Those were my sort of 3 areas of supposed expertise, so I spent more time writing about those 3 things. And I looked after the racing page. I learnt to lay out a racing page. I went to Ludlow, I went to Bangor and the odd Cheltenham, did stable tours with Henry Daly or Richard Lee, whoever it may be. So it was a really good grounding for me.
Okay, now we're here talking to you now because you are a successful tipster, writer, punter, pundit, all these things we talked about before. So when did the serious interest and the serious punting on racing start for you?
It took me a good few years to win, I think. I didn't go to university, but I certainly went to university of becoming a losing punter, and that took more than 3 years. Good distance. Like everyone, you have the flashes of where you might just have a bit of joy. You might get all 4 up on a Yankee and win a few quid. But considering I was sort of betting probably from 16, I'd say it took me well into my 20s before I became any good at winning, or knowing that I could win regularly, really, and finding a method and a way of operating that gave me a chance of winning.
Okay, now, so along the way, you're doing these proper jobs. You're working for Ceefax. Everybody of a certain age remembers Ceefax.
Yeah.
Was an important sort of...
Massive. Yeah, that was my first real job in racing. I think there was 4 or 5 of us got taken on at the time, and there was some brilliant minds in there. I mean, David Ord from the Press Association, John Hopkins, who's gone on to be one of the sort of the top subs on the Racing Post, and it was all run by Mike Grenham, who was at Hills for a good long time, overseeing all their broadcasting operations. And I learnt to write. I thought I could write going up there, but I hadn't got a clue. But when I got there, and the stuff that I learned from those people, how to write quickly, how to write interesting, informative stuff. But of course, you've only got so many characters to a line, and you've only got so many lines on a page. Ceefax, for those old enough to remember, everything had to be punchy, everything had to be good, hard, fast copy, and you had to get like a headline out within 10 seconds of a horse going over the line as well, and you had to write a snappy headline and an opening paragraph on a race before they'd even pulled up, pretty much. So it was all really good grounding for writing quick, swift copy.
Okay, so then also you obviously became good at tipping, because in 2001, 2002 you won the Naps table. Takes I'm doing for freelance. Yeah,
that was on the Shropshire Star. I mean, it was probably one of the lowest figures to have ever won the Nabs table. So it was, I had one of those golden spells where somehow I managed to stay in contention and it must have been a tough year because nobody ran away with it. I stayed in contention, and then Cheltenham week, just had a dream week, Cheltenham week. I think I had Sully's Hope, a horse of Nick Williams's, which Ruby rode on that Stratford the Monday afternoon. That one at 12-1, and that sort of got me level, or just above parity. And I think it was me and Rodney Masters, I think, from the Racing Post, and we sort of duelled for about the next 8 to 10 days. It was quite a short competition in those days. They've extended it out now and sort of evened them to the summer, and the jumps. Naps competitions are more in line with each other, 6 months apiece. But back in the day, the jumps one was probably only 4 to 5 months, and the flat one 7 months. So you had to be good for a less amount of time. And I just hit a golden run, and I hit a number of decent price winners, and just managed to fluke it, really.
So was it on the back of that you got the job at the Sportsman?
I think it certainly helped. After the Shropshire Star, I was lucky. I got into a position where I could leave the Shropshire Star but work as a freelance. So I got some work through when I was covering Telford. I was also working sort of on a Sunday as a freelance sub for the Mail. I'd sent in 1 or 2 stories, and they'd use them, and they said, look, anytime you want to come in as cover, just come in on a Sunday. So if Telford had got Stevenage or Dagenham on a Saturday afternoon, I'd stay over and then go into the Mail on the Sunday, and that was a brilliant grounding. We got some fantastic people on the racing desk, some of which unfortunately aren't there anymore. But I learnt again there, it's just a case of being a sponge and trying to take on board all these, and the accuracy and the level of subbing, was a absolute different level to anything that I'd probably seen before. The way that the pages were scrutinised before they were sent to print as well was the highest of standards. It was brilliant. And Marcus Tannen was, the editor then. Brian Giles was Robin Goodfellow, and we seem to have a plethora of staff, but unfortunately, like a lot of racing desks, that's gone by the by.
Now, going to the Sportsman, so you've got on there, and you're one of the 4 horsemen.
Well, the Sportsman was a funny situation, really, because I think they tried everyone, and there was a lot of people on the Racing Post who managed to engineer themselves decent wage increases on the back of the Sportsman showing an interest in them, basically. So I think the Sportsmen were really scrabbling around for bodies at the time, and I was sort of freelance, and my girlfriend at the time, I was saying, there's this new racing sporting betting paper coming out, do you think I should apply for it? And I was really quite enjoying what I was doing. I was doing freelance for the Shropshire Star. I was doing 1 or 2 other bits and pieces for GG, GG.com, and writing for them, and I'd got quite a comfortable life, and I wasn't having to extend myself too much, as long as I did my homework and sorted through the races on a daily basis. I was very comfortable, and then I just decided, well, go on, what have I got to lose? I'll apply to the Sportsman, and I think, as I say, there were shorter numbers, and I got a job and got taken on there, and obviously off the back of the Naps table win, that helped, because it just gave me a little bit of prominence in the industry. Otherwise, it was who the hell's Sam Turner? He's been covering Telford for 2 years. We don't know anything about him. So winning that at least gave me a little bit of a leg up.
Okay, so who were the other 3 horsemen?
Oh, better judges than me. Simon Rowlands, Ian Dean, and Richard O'Brien, who is now well entrenched with the Dixons in the Horse Watchers. So, I mean, there was some, yet again, brilliant people to learn from, absolutely brilliant people to learn from. And there was other good people who've gone on to have good careers who actually worked on the racing desk as well.
That's interesting, because there were a lot of talented people on the Sportsman, so what do you attribute to its demise then, or lack of success originally?
Oh, there's a few things. I think primarily is trying to run before it walks. We went as I think from memory, it's a while ago now, but we went as a sports betting paper with racing on the inside, and I think they realised the error of their ways after a few months, and then went, racing with sports betting inside. I think that was better. I think they paid some A-list celebrities a lot of money for columns, which bankrupt it's like bank management, isn't it, when you're betting? If you stay in the game for long enough, you've got a chance. Unfortunately, they threw a lot of money at it in a short period of time, and I think the Post were worried at the time. I think we were definitely, by the 9 or 10 months in, that's how long it took for the whole project to come unstuck. But by the end, we were a much better paper, as you'd expect, admittedly, than we were 6 months previously. And I think by the end, I think it was a really, really good competitor to the Racing Post. It's just a shame it couldn't stay in the game long enough to try and survive.